Bienvenidos todos a Las Doñas Hablan with your beautiful hosts, Nani, Val, and Chan. We're nickname based here. So today on Intros, we're going to take it to our roots. And I want you guys to enlighten me a little bit about your culture. What does a typical greeting in your country look like? So I'll start. In Panama, when you walk up to someone you haven't seen in a long time, you say, ¿Qué sopa? XOPA. We're really big on like X's over there. Yeah, and food too. Like a lot of our greetings have food. So you go to someone like, ¿Qué sopa, loco? ¿Cómo estás? Blah, 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 blah. So in Panama, we have what's called panameñismos, and we like to take Spanish words, split them in half, and then reverse them. That's just how our minds work. So, ¿qué pasó? ¿Qué sopa?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. All right, Nan. How do you do it in Puerto Rico?
Oh, dear. Explicit. Basically, the general greeting would be like, Huepa, ¿qué es la que? Yeah, and then explicit. But it's like, ¿qué es la que? Like, what's up?
Okay,
basically.
like, ¿qué es la que?
¿Qué es la que? But we, cut all those other essential letters and just say, ¿qué es la que? ¿Qué la que?
The H. Don't forget the H. What about you, Val?
Ooh, so in El Salvador, we're very proper. Hola, hermanos y hermanas, ¿cómo están? That's
really? Are you serious?
I actually really don't know. I will speak to the subculture of being Salvadorian American and raised in LA. And it's basically like,
just
hey,
a head
bro, what's
nod.
up? Bro, what's up? Mm-hmm. It's not
People
really
know.
a head nod. It's like a up.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it. That's how you greet one another. Hey.
Wow. I feel like I can go up to people that are Puerto Rican or Salvadorian now and just make them think that I'm one of them. Easy.
Yeah, you will be received very loudly. Don't worry about it.
Yay, with open arms.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So today you guys are invited to our sala to talk about a part 2 specifically concerning Latina and Latinx feminism. So I'm gonna give it to Val. If you can give us a quick little recap about what we talked about last time.
Yeah, sure. So last week we had one, I don't know when you're going to listen to it, people out there. But last week we talked about feminism, and the definition of feminism is advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality in the sexes. And we also talked about BIPOC and what the definition of that is, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color. We talked about mansplaining. We talked about a few definitions. And if you guys want to go back and listen to that, I definitely suggest before you hop into this one, because it kind of gives a little basis before we get in.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that with us. Val, so where is it that you're coming from? Like, where can someone that's wanting to know more about Latinx feminism or Latinx information, where can they get that from?
Good question. So I have not I haven't gone too much into it. Yeah, I've done this, but not a lot of it. I'm just like barely like touching the surface right now. I'm like walking on water. I haven't gone in yet. But I recently read this book, Hermanas, which was a really good resource for me to just kind of understand my cultural identity. And I wouldn't say necessarily this is a feminist book, but it definitely goes through the women of the scriptures and it gives you a little bit more information. Shout out to Debbie Pinto, who is the one who started it. Debbie Pinto Campos, I think is her name. Yeah. So that's one of the resources.
Nice. Nan, do you have anything that you could share with peeps?
So as Val, I feel like I've only touched the surface, and I was researching and trying to find something more recent and more modernized for Latinx feminism. And I was able to find this one research paper, but it was published in 2018, and that's rather recent. Right?
That's accurate. Yes.
Yeah. So It means that we're still like in the the surface. We still need to, I don't know,
Definitely.
get the passion and get out there and do the research and try to know more about our Latin American feminist history.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I don't know if we wanted to put something in the comments later so people can see what our resources are so that they can also do some of their own research, and that'd be great. So wanted to just share and put this premise that it, for Latinx information, there is very little. They're saying that within that article that you shared, Nan, that people are just digging into it because there isn't much as a result of it being a lot of oral information and not necessarily a lot of written information. So we just have some things that we wanted to share in general about kind of what our identities are, right? We can't necessarily expound on anything without first delving into our own selves and what is it that inspired us when it comes to Latinx feminism, what kind of inspired us to go forward in that. And if you guys can just share some of those narratives. So let's start with you, Val. What was your intro into Latinx feminism? Like, why did you want to do this? Who are some of your inspirations? Go for it.
Sure. So some of the like first inspirations are my family. Sorry, can you guys hear something in the background? Or you good? No? Okay. Anyways, back to it. We'll cut that out. Yeah, so some of the women in my life that inspired me are my family. I was raised with a tribe of women. And this tribe of women is my mother, my grandmother, and then my mother's friends and my grandmother's friends, las hermanas de la iglesia. All of these women are so powerful in my life. And the reason why is because we actually didn't have any males for like after the age of 10, I didn't have any males in my family. It was literally like my grandma's husband died and he was an alcoholic, so he wasn't very involved before then. And then my mother and my father split up and he was gone. So then, and then like my mother's best friends and some of the hermanas de la iglesia were widows and they had also split up from their husbands. So it was literally a tribe of women that raised me. And these strong, independent Latinas were really about like, you got to be able to support yourself. You need to be independent. You need to be hardworking. So all of these values that I think really do come from a feminist ideal, but also a very practical ideal for us, especially of having to survive. So for me, that was the main women that inspired me. And then also, I do have this weird thing where I don't know why, but most of the women in my life that were mentors and that continue to be mentors in my life are Argentinian American women. And yeah, I have no idea how in the world it keeps happening. Yeah. So one of them I have to give a shout out is Gabby Profeta de Phillips. She mentored me when I was at Southern Adventist University, and she introduced me to Adventist and Muslim Friendship Association, which got me involved into understanding a little bit more about different religions and how to be able to see God through those religions. And she was like an amazing female leader. And she was, really encouraging as far as like, hey, as bicultural women, we have the access to different people from different cultures and we have something to bring to the table.
Wow.
And then also a second woman that came into my life. I mean, I also want to shout out Darlene Handel. I don't know if you guys know her. She's also another woman that's an amazing, again, Argentinian American woman. And then, but she and I connected a little bit later. From the same group though. And then I want to also shout out Ingrid Slickers, who I worked with alongside in advocating for unaccompanied children and migrants and refugees within the US. And she was a really important, like starting my career woman that mentored me, encouraged me, and always helped me to understand that this was God's work. So those are a few women. And also just like you ladies, just being surrounded by you ladies is inspiring as well. Some of the other women that I've met in my life and have done ministry, a lot of them are Latinas. And I am just so proud of all the women that are out there, paving the way for whatever it is that they're really passionate about.
I love the strong Latina tribe that you're talking about that has been with you through that lifespan development. At each station of your life, you've had someone that has been really crucial in helping you move forward in your identity. Nan, talk to us about any of these. Why did you get started into this Latinx feminism? How? Who? Answer all those open-ended questions.
Well, it's pretty boring because I am the first in my family that's actually been more open to learning about feminism, even though it's silently there with my mom and my grandmother. Of course, there's this stereotype of the housewife, certain stigma around that, and they were, yes, they loved being in the house and they loved providing for their husbands and their children, but they always were very adamant about promoting, going to college and working and, fending for yourself and gaining that sense of independence on your own. So I always admired that. So that's why I say that I'm the one that's investigating or I'm new to feminism because I exposed myself to it. But I do feel like they had that feminist spirit in them as well, and they inculcaron eso en mí, and they me empujaron to reach higher heights. But my grandma didn't go to college. My mom went to college, and then that inspired them to push me to go to college as well. So it's like we were all growing at the same time with certain experiences and certain, I'm the first one to move to the United States. So I've been the one that's exposed them a little bit more to the more progressive or more open-minded concepts. So it's a very new experience for me as well. And that, not saying that Puerto Rican women aren't feminists. The culture we cultivate is very, let's just say it, somos fuerte. Like you hear about a Puerto Rican, oh, you're married to a Puerto Rican. They tell Brian like, oh, wow, that's a lot of work. Because we have this, people have this stereotype that we're these strong, very strong-willed, forward women. And we know who we are and we know what we want and we go after that. So that's why I say we might not use the word feminism, but it's very integrated into our culture.
I love that you stated that even though they weren't like quote unquote maybe overt feminists, there was that feminist nature within them, this idea that women should be equal, women deserve a certain level of respect, women should also have aspirations and dreams that they go and seek and look for as well. And I like that you bring that narrative also within the conversation. When it comes to me, I really feel like my mom was a little feminist, and she's going to be like, Chantal, no le digas eso a las personas porque después van a pensar que soy no sé qué, no sé qué, no sé qué. And I'm like, Ma, it's not an insult. Like,
shout out to Carmen. We love you, Carmen.
Yes, Carmen.
She's going to be like giggling. Oh my God. I just imagine her. She was I feel like it is encapsulated in a story. A year before I got married, I was doing my internships for physical therapy school, and I was being una niña traviesa, just calling my mom and being like, Ma, if you could only go to one, if you could only go to my wedding, or if you could only go to my PT graduation, which one would you pick? And then in my mind, I'm like, Mom's gonna pick a wedding, duh. Like this like stereotypical idea of the Latina mujer. And she's like, tu graduación. I was like, what? Ma, why? She's like, because that's what matters. Like, I want you to know that you can take care of yourself. Like, you're okay, you're independent, you've got this, you have your education. That's all I want. I was like, oh, wow. Totally did not think about my mom being a little feminist, but she is all about women being educated, women being able to vote, women being able to do these own things and have their choices and move out into the world. And she's you know, like a little conservative person. So she's like, no, no le digas a la gente que yo pienso así. But she does. She comes out here and she's like, las mujeres deberían de hacer esto. Y las mujeres deberían de tener esto también. Y yo pienso así. Y, she's such a cutie. So it was from her, and then also instilled my grandmother, who was also really big on education, who she initially, before she got married, had only got to the 5th grade, I think. And then later on in her life, she went to night school, and then she graduated night school, funny enough, on the same day that my mom graduated from high school. So I think that's really special. And that's kind of where it came from for me. So let's, now that we've given our personal identity, I think, however, that there is a Latinx feminist or femininity that we all get, that we're all under the stigmas and the stereotypes that we kind of all face. Do you guys want to speak to that? Like, what have you seen that's kind of more global throughout just the Latin American diaspora? I think for me personally, or for what I've seen, and a video actually that I saw that came from Mountain View College over in Texas, I see you, Dallas, coming out here with some theories, was this idea of the quinceañera. Who here had a quinceañera? Raise your hand. We all had a quinceañera? That's so exciting.
We have to show each other the pictures.
Yes. My aqua blue dress.
Really? Mine was turquoise.
What?
Yeah, but I had it Panamanian themed. So I had like a Panamanian garb with my tembleques and like.
That is so cultured. I was like, no, my favorite colors are blue and green. So we'll do blue and green. And my tiara.
Oh my, did you have the big poofy dress too? It was the poofy one?
Yep. You know those like enaguas? I don't know, those slips that are like with a ring under them, that they're just like that big cupcake thing.
Yes.
That's what I had. It was like a bell. Like, but my mom poured her heart and soul into that, and that's why it's so special to me. Mainly just because of that. I look back, I was like, this scrawny little 15-year-old, dear Lord. But it was interesting.
Mine
How
was
about you, Val?
Surprise. Oh yeah, Val.
I had a white dress, and one of my strongest memories was that we had, again, like, we're Salvadorian, but because I grew up in Los Angeles, we're very also Mexican. So we had mariachis. We also got down on the dance floor.
Oh, nice.
So my quinceañera was actually a surprise. I had no idea that it was coming. My parents the week before were like, guess what? We planned this for you. And here's your dress. And I was like, oh my goodness. My grandma came from Panama. We had like a little party at the gym of the church. We just played like Panamanian music, and it was great. I didn't have like the chambelanes or the damas because it was just me, but it was phenomenal. It was a great opportunity, and I like to look at videos or see reactions of other girls from their quinceañeras. And something that this video was talking about when it comes to the philosophy, or when it comes to how the quinceañera is played out within our society and culture, is that you're kind of moving this girl from being a girl to una mujercita, a little mujer. Can you guys, I feel like there might be people that might have no idea what a quinceañera is. Nani, can you just give them a really quick recap about what the quinceañera is?
Yeah, it's basically this grand ceremony transitioning you from being a little girl to a woman. The only thing is that I just had different shoes, and that's what made me a woman. I had that little ceremony. It was very spiritual, which I enjoyed. It was like, oh yeah, a woman in God in Christ. But it was like, oh, I don't have to wear flats anymore. I can wear heels. I don't know. Did you guys have that ceremony as well? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, bam, instant woman.
Yeah. I remember we had, it's so funny because did you guys have the doll ceremony too?
Yep, I
Yep.
did.
The last muñeca.
Uh-huh.
You had to give it away to somebody else. And I remember my cousin was like crying her eyes out because she was scared of the doll. That wasn't even my doll. I had to buy a doll in order to give it to her.
I gave a Barbie.
Oh my goodness.
It was a Barbie with the same dress that I was wearing and everything. And then it had this other giant Barbie. I used to love that Barbie. So yeah, part of me was like, I don't feel like a woman whatsoever. I'm still a kid. Like, even if I'm 15, like, let me keep the doll and my flats. No, I actually wanted heels all the time, but you know, it was like this ceremony, and you automatically are supposed to know what being a woman is, and know what how your body is changing, and I don't know. It's all like one magical ceremony is not going to teach you all that. Just saying.
Val looks like she was itching to say something before. She was like tapping her lips.
I know, right? This is like, I'm excited to say. Yeah. So something that when I was studying international development, something that I came across that I literally was like, this is what's happening to women in Latinx culture, is that we are taught at a young age that we are done being little girls and now we're transitioning into womanhood. But something that actually, I mean, we're in some ways, the Latinx women and our culture, we're past the idea that we're going to get married at that age. Like, we are no longer in that phase, but there are still people within the world that are doing that, like around that age, that are getting married off. But it's so crazy to see that there's actually a correlation between whether or not women are married at a young age and whether they get an education, and how that's linked to poverty. So a lot of times, like when women are getting married at a young age and they're stopping going to school, which at that point we would have stopped going to school if we were 15, then we would have been in impoverished situations. And in order to lift ourselves out of poverty, we have to educate women.
Wow, I was literally going to speak about kind of the historical context of the quinceañera, but you hit it right in the head, Val, how because you had this quinceañera, now you have this mujercita that she now needs to do her job of having a home and helping at the home and helping the family there, and or like you said, getting married and going off and creating her own family, and as a result of that is unable to continue with her education and is unable to, I just love how you're such a wordsmith, Val, how because of this idea of the poverty, how you're required to be able to educate yourself to get out of that situation. That's something specifically that I remember my mom telling me over the phone. She said, I didn't want to be poor because she had she was living mostly in poverty in Panama. And it's not to say anything about like living in poverty. However, she knew that she could have more opportunity if she went and she continued on with her education. And that goes to say she's a pharmacy tech here in the States, but pharmacist in Panama, and turns around and goes and helps her family and tries to continue and better herself and be a good role model in that sense. Wow. So with just one celebration that might seem like lighthearted and exciting, there's so much that is implied with it. Just this insecurity that you have, this now forcing of society now telling you, nope, now this is what you do now. And you had no choice. It wasn't like, I want to, like Nani said, I still want to be a little girl. Like, what? I don't even know my body, like what's going on, but you're expecting this from me now. And just how that then plays out into the rest of the young adulthood and the lifespan and life development of a Latinx woman. Another societal construct that Latinx women fall under is this idea of La Virgen Guadalupe, right? Anybody want to talk about specifically what is said, what is implied, what are we expected as a result of having this woman representing Latinx femininidad? Nani? Val? Who's going to take it? I think Val pointed first, so that means Nani has to say it.
No, we're pointing at
Me?
you.
Oh, just
Yes.
kidding. So from what I've read and what I've seen and from this video, La Virgen Guadalupe is another picture and portrayal of Mary that Central Americans and South Americans and Latinx individuals mostly identify with. And the idea of La Virgen Guadalupe that is now portrayed onto women is that not only are you a woman at an early age because of your quinceañera, but now you have to be a woman that is very pious and you have to have purity and you have to represent yourself in a certain way and you have to be a level of perfection because you not only are a woman, but you're also a virgin woman that somehow had Jesus. So that makes you even more perfect. So you're giving these high expectations onto Latinx women. And we know that within certain Protestant cultures, you have tradition that has now spilled over from Catholicism. So these expectations aren't just within the more Catholic culture. It's also been portrayed and also spilled over onto Protestantism. And we talked a little bit about kind of what our expectations or how we had to be perfect in a sense as pastor spouses, but that kind of comes from this idea of La Virgen Guadalupe, right? So when it comes to Latinx feminism, we have to understand that within the United States, you don't have Latinx feminism, current definition of Latinx feminism, without looking at the work that Black females and Black feminists did here in the United States. So we want to pay homage and pay respect and note that we are on your coattails. We are riding in after everything that it is that you guys did for us, and we are grateful for that. And when it comes to feminism, this abstract concept, how can create it and how can we make it a little bit more concrete? And so we want to take this time to just talk a little bit more about women that have inspired us or what feminism within the Latinx culture looks like within specific roles. And that's culture, politics, religion, society. How have women, specifically Latinx women, helped to create the society that we live in today? How have helped to grow, have helped to expand, have helped to all these great and positive things. So I kind of want to start with the idea of culture and art. What does Latinx feminism look like historically? How did it look like historically? Who helped to create and pave the way for now? And what does it look like now? Let's start with you, Val.
Do you want me to start with culture and art, or would you like me to start with politics? Because that's all I got.
Sorry, my computer was about to die. Hey, it's real. It's live, guys.
It's okay, Val. We can go with Nani.
So in culture and art and even sports, that's something that we often forget when we talk about women.
Ooh.
Like, for example, Monica Puig is a very renowned, very well-known tennis player that won us a gold medal in the Olympics. And who can forget Rita Moreno, of course, and EGOT. I like to live in America. I mean, amazing. And then we have Julia de Burgos, that was a renowned poet as well. She was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and she was a poet and activist, always putting forth the message for Afro-Caribbean women specifically. And although her poetry leaned towards politics that we can touch on a little later, she was one of the women that I admire the most, Puerto Rican women that used her art to voice, to make the women's voice heard, which is amazing.
Which is big for you because all of these beautiful graphics that you guys see, all of the Instagram photos and pictures, layouts, that girl right there, Nanivet, she is our beautiful
Team effort,
artisan.
guys.
She just has to say that. She can take out the credit. Wow. So you have, I love that you're bringing about, first of all, sports. Yes, thank you. Women have also helped to push and have accolades in sports as well, but also how art, not only is it just for like appreciation or demonstrating someone's personal thoughts, but also you said, Nani, that this poet was a specific individual that helped to progress the idea of politics within Puerto Rico. Anyone else when it comes to culture within the Latinx community? Because if not, we've got politics for you, right? Val, can you talk to us about who are some women that have inspired you? How the history of Latinx feminism looks like, and how it looks like now?
Yes. So something that one person that really inspires me, and I often hear, especially a lot in Los Angeles, and we have entire streets not dedicated to her, but we have entire streets dedicated to Cesar Chavez because of the farm workers movement. And then we also have schools that are named after this woman. Her name is Dolores Huerta. And she's one of my cultural heroes. And the reason why is because although I'm not Mexican American, she is a Mexican American woman that was living and advocating in California. And just as a person who really was involved a lot with and knew a lot of people that were working people within farm communities, that's something that was really important to me. So although hold on. Okay, so yeah, she was really involved with leading alongside Cesar Chavez and the farm workers movement in the 60s with strikes and eventually boycotts. And she's the one who made the chant, Si se puede, popular. That was her. We also find out that she started this when she was 30 years old, which hope for those of us which are on the cusp or have passed 30 and may not know necessarily what we're going to do yet. She found out that she was really passionate about the farm workers movement and she really wanted to be joining and leading in that. And she started doing it at 30 years old. But she was such an amazing woman that she was committed to this movement. And when she went to San Francisco, she went because at the time, George Bush the first was saying that pesticides was actually not harming the farm workers, but they were. And she went over there to protest and demonstrate. And she got beat so badly by police officers. And she was 58 years old when this happened. She broke her ribs. She ruptured her spleen. Well, she didn't. The police officers did. But not just this. Another amazing accolade that she received was that she was awarded by President Barack Obama the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This is an amazing, I literally, when I was watching the video of Dolores Huerta getting this, I was crying my eyes out because I was like, this is what we can do as women. Latinx women have power and we have places to advocate, and people will eventually notice it.
Well, yeah, I'd like to add to this and to say I was also researching and I really like this quote is the role women have played in Latin American history cannot be overlooked if we want to establish a more diverse and equal space for all people to see themselves reflected in their country's history. And I come from the perspective, obviously, from Puerto Rico and how we're a U.S. territory and how a lot of these women are not in our textbooks and we don't hear about them. During this assignment for this video, it was when I was actually adamant about finding out who these powerful women are that changed history. And in our own cultural spectrum, that's a weird American colony. I just wanted to say a few names of women that were involved politically and that made a change. For example, Mariana Bracetti, she was the one that, made the first Puerto Rican flag. It's not the one that we have currently because we have been Americanized in that sense, but the original Puerto Rican flag, She sewed it in New York, and it was brought to Puerto Rico, and it was very famous for its role in El Grito de Lares. That was a huge event that marked our island's history. They used to call her arm Brazo de Oro, golden arm, because of her impeccable talent at sewing things. And then we also have people like Luisa Capetillo, that was an organizer and activist, and she was mostly known for her contributions to the labor and anarchist movements in Puerto Rico. Another one that a lot of Puerto Ricans know is Felice Rincón de Gautier. There's this museum in San Juan honoring her, and I'm pleased to say that I was able to go there and learn a little bit more about her. She was the first mayor of our capital city in our island, which was amazing. And as well, we have Lola Rodriguez de Tio, and she was the first woman to actually establish herself as a poet, because I mentioned Julia de Burgos before, but Lola Rodriguez de Tio was the first one to establish herself as a poet. And she was very, very vocal about the abolition of slavery and the independence of Puerto Rico, so much so that the Spanish governors banned her from Puerto Rico. So she was sent to Venezuela, and then she ended up in Cuba, and she helped with the efforts there in the Cuban Revolution, which, wow, her country couldn't appreciate her, so she had to go somewhere else and start her own, be part of another revolution.
Wow.
And those are just a few of the women. There are more women that I am so happy that I was able to find more information about them. And I can't wait for this next generation of Latinas, Puerto Ricans as well, Puerto Rican women, to learn about these pillars from our history. And I hope that someday it can be included in our curriculums and in our schools and our textbooks.
I think for me, it's important to realize, going off of what the both of you have said, and just a little intermission, that telling the stories of these women should and needs to be told, specifically in this space, but also in history books, because we need to understand that the society that you live in now, the things that you can do now, the liberties, the even things that you have now, weren't just made by men. A lot of them were also made by women, strong women that went out there against the current to help and change and provide these rights and provide these things for other individuals. And it's not just one group of women, it's all throughout. How all of Latin America, how when we understand, like that quote that you just said, Nan, about when we understand that equality, that we can see ourselves all throughout this beautiful diaspora in the world. And it just makes me so excited. I feel like also, might be a rumor, someone fact check me maybe later on, but I feel like I remember reading that hand sanitizer was made by a Latinx woman. And like, look at how helpful that is in our society today. Like, everybody needs some hand sanitizer. Like, that's huge. You would not have hand sanitizer had it not been for a Latinx woman. But if I'm really wrong and I just ranted for no reason, please forgive me, everybody. I'm really sorry. But I love that you said, Nan, in researching these women from your country, you yourself felt empowered by the work that they did. You inspired me to do my own little search, just a simple little search for what it was, or who it was within Panama that helped to progress Panama into what it is today. And just two names that are special to me that my tias and my cousins are going to message me about later. Maria Osa de Amador, who was the Madre de la Nación, the women, you said you had that one individual that sewed the original Puerto Rican flag. Maria was the one that sewed the Panamanian flag, and just the patria that one gets when they see their flag. You know that my country has gone through this like tiny little country that has had these struggles has gone out there and done this. And then the little banner that they have as a result of that. And then one other person who is an Afro-Latina Panamanian, Reina Torres de Arauz, who helped to create some of the museums now that we have in Panama, El Patrimonio Histórico dentro del Instituto Nacional de Cultura. specifically beautiful, beautiful individuals, beautiful and strong women that have also helped within politics to help to progress what these countries look like today and help to try to make them even better countries than what they previously were. So we're talking about politics, we've talked a little bit about culture, but also when it comes to Latinx feminism, there are also things that we're continually fighting for, right? Continually striving to achieve when it comes to these women and what society looks like. Val, you stated before how you have these individuals and these women that are within the poverty line and are unable to receive education, or if we can talk a little bit more about what it looks like for teenage pregnancies within the Latinx population and how that affects them. So Val, if you can expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read right here. Per 1,000 Hispanic teens aged 15 to 17 years old, the birth rate was 25.5%, while the total birth rate per 1,000 teens is 14.1%. So we're still seeing, and I believe this is the highest rate. I'm looking at Native American women, and they are still lower. Black women, still lower. Yeah, we're definitely seeing the highest rates among Latinx women. And I think that's something that a lot of women, and I just want to say this, I guess one thing that I find as a trend among women that get pregnant or get the blessing of a child at a really young age is that they will give up on their progression in education. And as a woman who was born from a 16-year-old girl, like my mother continued her education, decided to get, the best job that she could so that she can advance. And it's not over. If you are pregnant and you find yourself in an unwanted pregnancy, it's not over. Like you can provide for your child. You can definitely still go and get that education, even if it's a vocational degree in order to become a paralegal, lo que sea, para mover adelante. So yeah, I just wanted to touch a little bit on that just because I know that is the reality for a lot of us women, especially Latinx women, that teenage pregnancy is a common thing.
I know that when it comes to talking about Latinx feminism, when it comes to talking about feminism in this context, we also have to talk about what the society and what this culture and what these group of people are working towards. And I know I was raised in Texas in a predominantly Latinx community. My dad was a high school teacher. And so when it comes to talking about teenage female pregnancies, it's not to shame, it's to say, hey, let us help our girls, let us help them continue, let us also help them get their dreams and aspirations, and that telling them that their life hasn't been ended, which is what a lot of girls are getting nowadays. Tu vida ya no tienes más, ya no puedes hacer nada más, ya lograste y te fregaste, mija, to be honest, and just to change that narrative, like, no, she is able to continue, she is strong, she's powerful, and she has a rally of individuals that are behind her. Also, how does Latinx feminism look like within a religious context? I'm going to go once again to Val. If you can, just give us a little bit of that perspective. I feel like you have some things to say.
Yeah. So I think, being someone who studied theology and was really interested in becoming a pastor, it was actually really difficult for me personally within my own Spanish church growing up. I think I was really encouraged up to a certain point. But once I got this young pastor that came to our church that was so empowering, he was like, he saw me, he saw like my passion for Jesus. He saw that I was all about ministry and enthusiastic about it. And he empowered me to be on the board, to be, en la junta. Yeah, he was great. And then he got a youth pastor to come. And I don't know if Daniel Castañanza or his wife is listening to this, but he was super, super, I don't want to say providential. What's the word? ¿Cómo se dice? necesario, like a turning point really in my life, because he was the one who was like, "Hey, Valerie, I need somebody to preach for me." I was maybe like 19. I don't know how old I was. I think I was 19 years old at that time. And he was like, "I need somebody to preach for me. You got this, girl." Because I had been teaching Sabbath school and I was like all about it. So he's like, "Go up there and preach." And so there was a lot of people that, although a lot of times in our Hispanic culture, we can feel like we need to limit our women in our religious spaces and not let them have leadership. There are also people that are creating space for that and saying, "I'm going to step down. I'm not going to preach today. It's your turn." Like God has something I know that God has something upon you. You have some gifts, you have some talents, and I see your passion. I'm going to give you space to express that. And I remember the first time I preached, a few people walked out of the church. Some hermanos and hermanas, they just walked out. But I think that one thing that we can do as well in religious spaces is give space for women to be leaders in our churches.
Ooh, Val. I'm so glad that you touched on this, and I commend you for being a female Latina theologian. I admire you for that as well. All your knowledge, and how Chantal says she's a wordsmith. I'm like, wow, I didn't understand that or didn't see that this way. And God just shows you how to say it and how to share it with others through art as well. And I really appreciate that, and I'm thankful for you. I don't know if you guys knew, though, that in 1651, the first female theologian was Mexican. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I have one of her quotes I want to share with you guys. Yeah, it says, "She studies and disputes and teaches, and thus she serves her faith. For how could God, who gave her reason, want her ignorant?" It's like fire.
Wait, can you say it one more time?
Her name was.
Can you say the quote one more time, please? Okay.
Yeah. So it's a quote by Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. If you guys want to look her up later, or if you have some more information about her that you want to leave in the comments, we welcome it, about other female theologians. And the quote says, "She studies and disputes and teaches, and thus she serves her faith. For how could God, who gave her reason, want her ignorant?" It's heavy stuff. Yeah. And it's more addressing how female theologians are feeling invisible, and how Val said haven't had necessarily the space to be themselves and to actually practice what they studied, and always having to have, defy stereotypes and social religious norms, and the invisible invisibility that that has kind of silenced them. I don't know if that has been your experience, but that's what Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz was pointing at too.
Wow. I love that. And when I think about women in the Bible, I'm mostly drawn to these women that kind of speak to what you just said in that quote, Nan, about why would God want them mute? Why them practicing their faith looks such. And the first thing that I think of is, one, I need to give thanks to Chantel. She's a Instagrammer, content creator, Chantel, amongst other things. But she gave a sermon once at university, and it was about the Shunammite woman in 2 Kings 4. And this woman has helped to create who I am, my identity as a feminist, but also a Latinx woman, a woman that shows free agency, as Val likes to say, when it is that her son dies, her husband, she goes out to the field and tells her husband, "Hey, I need to go to the man of God's house." And her husband is like, "What's going on?" She's like, "I just need to go to the man of God's house. Like, I'm not going to tell you right now. Like, this is between the Lord and I." And like, you have all these different men that are coming to her and say like, "Hey, like, how can we help you? Like, what is it that you need?" She's like, "No, this is between the Lord and I. I need to practice my faith. I need to demonstrate. I need to go to the Lord with the issues that I have myself, and we need to work through this together." And how that plays out now in how I live, in our society, and how I practice my faith as a Latinx woman. Wow, that quote was golden, Nan. You put the cherry on top. Does anyone have any other closing thoughts that they want to share?
Just that as Latinx women, we have, I think, so much to bring to the table, and we really need to come with our full selves, our cultural backgrounds, our struggles, our lived experiences, all of these different things to the table, and bring it to each of our different, whatever we're studying, whatever it is that is our profession or the spaces that we fill.
Yes. I love that, coming with our whole selves, all the different intersections of who we are, coming to this table, dialoguing, discussing, grappling through a lot of the different issues that we deal with. Nan, can you tell us what was kind of like most impactful for you, and what do you kind of want to see or hope for the future of Latinx feminism?
Yeah, I want to say I needed to start with myself and in my circle. If I'm going to progress, or if we're going to progress, it's again education and information. Um, Even though it's kind of hard for the Latinx feminist movement in that sense, because there's so little information, it's more like questioning my history and the history of my country, and trying to bring other people to, question that as well, and for us to come together and search. And as Valerie was saying, like, we in the Christian community, we can root it in the Bible, and look at all these great examples of feminists we have in the Bible. I said it, feminists in the Bible. um, if we look at Ruth, Esther, even Vashti, that people might not think that she's a feminist icon, but she stood up to her man, like to the king, and she was able to survive that. So all these, if we look at all these examples from the past, either from the Bible or from our countries, we can use them as, examples and pathways, and see the intersections, and what they had to deal with, and bring it to this century, and put it into practice. The things that they had, that was a revolution. We need our own revolution for now. Those are my 2 cents. I said it, revolution.
Wow, we need our revolution for now. We need to change. We need to break out. We need to no longer move in what is comfortable and what has been the norm, and push past that. Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening, for tuning in into our sala, nuestra comunicación, no con nuestra, what do I say? How do I say this in Spanish? Besides saying like our gossip.
Nuestro té. No, mentira. Nuestro
Diálogo.
diálogo. Sí,
Nuestro
yeah,
diálogo.
that's good.
En nuestra sala. We hope that you guys are blessed. We're praying for you, and enjoy the rest of this day, evening, whatever it is, and hope to see you again. Ciao.